Ira Trivedi, renowned yoga instructor and author. Welcome to the show, Ira Trivedi. And before we talk about yoga on this big day of International Yoga Day, I'd say congratulations are in order. Many congratulations on your wedding. And so
Thank you so much.
I'm guessing this must be a special yoga day for you in multiple ways.
I must say that I planned my wedding around International Yoga Day so that I would finish my wedding and have enough time between my wedding and International Yoga Day. In fact, the dates that we were getting, which were right on International Yoga Day, and for a moment I thought, let me get married on International Yoga Day. That would be apt for me to have my wedding on that day. But then I thought that it would be too chaotic. So I said, let's have two occasions to celebrate let's celebrate my wedding and then let's celebrate International Yoga and let's keep it separate. So I have to let you know that this was planned and International Yoga Day
This is
was a
amazing. I
definite
have to say,
point
this
that I
is a
was
fascinating story. One that you can narrate to your kids and grandkids one day. And I'm sure that the husband clearly knows where your priorities lie. So it's a good thing you set the record straight
yes.
on that one.
I said, listen, International Yoga Day is the most important day of the year for me, and I cannot compromise on that no matter what, even if it's my wedding. So that's how we actually did it. So, yes.
I'd say more power to you, Ira Trivedi. But we celebrate Yoga Day every year. There is no doubt that it's becoming more and more wildly popular with every passing year. But this year is particularly special. Why? Because Prime Minister Narendra Modi is leading Yoga Day celebrations at the United Nations headquarters in New York. So this is India really taking ownership of this magical ancient practice of yoga. And I was just talking to Dr. Mickey Mehta about this. It's mind-boggling. One cannot think of any other example of one country's ancient practice being adopted on such a massive global scale. Why do you think people are so obsessed with yoga globally?
And in fact, I just want to say that I think India's most important and most powerful export to the world is yoga on a cultural level, on a spiritual level. And yoga is not a big industry within our country, but internationally, yoga is a huge industry. It's a $1 trillion industry and it's growing, year by year. So I feel really proud as a yoga teacher that yoga has made such an impact on lives, of course, in our country, but around the world. And that truly shows that flexibility, is the name of the game here. Yoga is truly a flexible practice and it's adapted to different religions, adapted to different body types. It's adapted to so many different forms and ways. And I think that's wonderful because we live in very toxic environments. The cities that we live in, the air that we breathe, the food that we eat has so much toxicity in it, and that's why there's so much disease. So yoga is the best, the finest, the cheapest, and the most effective way of detoxifying the body. And if our body is less toxic, the mind automatically becomes less toxic. There's a direct body-mind connection. So I really feel that yoga has become so popular because it is also the need of the hour. People are seeing the benefits of yoga in their day-to-day life. And yoga has been adapted for kids, for senior citizens, for disease, for very fit people. So that's the beauty of yoga. And I really feel that on this International Yoga Day, it is such a powerful and strong day. We should really, make the sankalpa to incorporate yoga into our daily lives.
You're quite right. I was just discussing this earlier with Dr. Mickey Mehta, and I'd like your thoughts on this, Ira, since you talked about how it seems to be a bigger industry internationally than in India. Some data that I came across during my research actually left me quite astounded. According to this, the United States spends $16 billion annually on its yoga industry. There are 7,000 yoga studios per capita in the United States, more than anywhere else in the world. And even though purists like Dr. Mickey Mehta don't approve, but as we know, there are multiple versions or avatars of yoga. There isn't just simply yoga, there is hot yoga, there is yin yoga, there is yoga light. I mean, clearly, This is huge
Yes,
in the United States.
absolutely. And I agree with it because I feel that different bodies need different practices, and not one practice can fit everyone. So some people who have a lot of rajas in their body, a lot of, a lot of activity, they need to get it out. Otherwise, it fuels into negative directions. For them, hot yoga can be very, very good. I've met people who have cured a lot of disease by hot yoga and had huge transformation. Yin yoga is for those people who need to de-stress their systems, need to really connect with their parasympathetic nervous systems, and that's a wonderful form of practice. So I actually I appreciate that the West has brought in creativity in this practice, and but at the same time, I do feel that in many places in the US, authenticity has remained intact. I know there are some silly things like beer yoga and goat yoga, but I think those are just, they're just trends that come and they go. They're just a talking point. But you're right. There's so many yoga studios. In fact, there's more yoga studios in New York City than in Mumbai. Okay, maybe not as many yoga, I mean, practitioners, because Mumbai is a very popular, densely populated city, but definitely more yoga studios. I also feel that the US has done a pretty good job commercializing yoga, whereas in India, it's not yet a commercial pursuit. I can tell you that yoga teachers struggle to make two ends meet. They struggle to get clients. They struggle to do things. And while our government has been very good about it, there's still an 18% taxation on yoga if you do it as a commercial venture. So while the government is promoting yoga done in a charitable way, as an industry and as a commercial industry, I still feel like we have some ways to go to be able to really make this a commercially viable industry in this country.
That is interesting. But so let's first talk about something that you and Dr. Mickey Mehta sort of disagree on. Like I said, he's probably a purist, somebody who said that a lot of what goes on in the name of yoga, especially in foreign countries, is a circus. But you actually made a very interesting point. You said you agree that there should be other kinds of yoga, such as yin yoga, because the same kind of yoga cannot and perhaps should not be practiced by every individual. At the
Yes,
end of the day, Ira, would you agree that this is much more than a physical exercise or routine?
absolutely.
This is holistic well-being that we are talking about. It is something that has the
Absolutely.
power of changing our lives, and therefore we should have the liberty to tailor it to our
Yes.
bodily and maybe psychological needs.
I agree. I completely agree. And I also feel that while I've met gurus and swamis who said that we began our spiritual journey doing yoga. And we saw a couple of pictures on Instagram and we thought yoga looked interesting and we integrated it into our life. So I do feel that yoga has that power to draw people, and definitely it is a holistic science. It is really a science of the mind, body, and the soul all together. So I do feel that people in this age, which is inundated with information of all kinds, they need to see some newness. And when they see that newness, they get attracted, and maybe they go to a very, very modern fitness yoga class and they love it, and then they get pulled towards something which is a more sattvic spiritual practice, which is also yoga. And maybe that leads them to meditation and more subtle practices. So I think the different forms of yoga that are cropping up in the West and also in India are wonderful because all of them have the same purpose of drawing people inward. So as long as yoga retains its fundamental purpose of drawing people inward and making our minds more internal and bringing that mind body soul connection, then it is still yoga. That is the meaning of the word yoga. It's yoga, it's union. And when we integrate the mind, body, and soul, that can lead to very many powerful things. So I I do think that what is happening with yoga around the world is fantastic because more and more people are doing yoga. And yoga is not something which is going away anytime soon. In fact, people who've never done yoga in their lives, in fact, someone like me, when I was growing up, I always looked at yoga as something so slow and so boring. I wanted to play different sports. I wanted to do swimming and basketball, and that's a lot more fun. today I see children and they say, wow, we want to do yoga. It's so cool. It's so much fun. It's so wonderful because they're being taught yoga in a very creative way. So I actually think that I appreciate the creative energy that has been brought into yoga and also the modern science. A lot of people are integrating now yoga with a lot of, they're integrating like physiotherapy and Pilates and yoga, and everybody needs something different. So people, when they connect to their breath and their bodies, they're just happier individuals. And so I appreciate everything.
You know, it's interesting, Ira, that you talk about how some people might have reservations. And, you know, I might sound like a space cadet saying this to you, but I'm going to make an honest confession. You know, someone like me, I have actually never, you know, in a serious sense, really tried yoga in my life. Not because I do not believe in what yoga can do for an individual, not necessarily because I find it slow and boring, as you once did when you were younger, but because, you know, I may be too lazy. I, you know, find excuses like, oh, I don't have the time for it, or maybe I feel that physically maybe I'm too inflexible to do something like this. Therefore, what would your advice be to, let's say, beginners, to people who've never done it, but are obviously fascinated by how yoga has transformed other people's lives and wonder what it would be like to actually make a fresh start? What would you say?
I would say begin with something simple. Thanks for sharing your story. I appreciate that. And the first step towards moving forward is accepting that, hey, listen, I'm making excuses. That's the first thing to actually recognize. So I'm glad that you recognize that, and I really hope that today is a great day for everyone to start yoga. And even if it's a very basic practice, yoga doesn't have to be an hour every day. I don't get an hour every day to do yoga. I don't. As a yoga teacher, I have other responsibilities. I have a company to run. I have, lots of things to do. So it's not possible for me to do yoga every single day. In fact, today on International Yoga Day, as you can imagine, it's been an incredibly busy day, but I did sneak in a short practice for 10 minutes. And that was good enough for me today. It doesn't have to be an hour and a half every day. You can begin by doing 10 minutes of pranayam every single morning. And that in itself is something so, so powerful, right? So just a simple breathing practice, a simple meditation practice, a simple practice of Surya Namaskar. And once you begin, once you put the key in the keyhole of the car and ignite the engine, then the car starts moving. So just remember that putting that key into the keyhole and igniting the engine is that first step. And that's the hardest to take. And once you take it, I promise you that 10 minutes will become 15 minutes, will become 20 minutes, will become 30 minutes. And that's the beauty of yoga. That's really what I've seen in my life, that yoga just gives you that beautiful push. And I'll also tell you that getting on your yoga mat is hard every single day, even for yoga teachers, because yoga is an exercise of the mind, not just the body. It's easier to go to the gym. It's easier to go on a jog. It's easier to go on a walk when you're chatting with your friends, walking. But to do yoga, it is a mental discipline as well. And I've seen in my life, and I've been most mentally disciplined, and I've been writing the most. I'm getting on my yoga mat and I'm writing, and that yoga creates a discipline of my mind that I need.
Well, that is very nicely explained, and I must say, Ira, coming from a convert like you, this is very reassuring. For someone who's never tried it, to be told you can always make a start. It doesn't matter whether you've done it before or not, and age is irrelevant. Would you agree?
It's irrelevant. Today I did a yoga class in the morning, and we had people from the ages of like 25 to 75, 80, and they were all practicing yoga together. And it was so beautiful. And actually the 75-year-old knew more yoga than the 25-year-old, but they were still practicing together. So I feel like yoga is for all bodies, for all ages, and it can be adapted, right? It can be adapted as such. And remember, you can always begin with Shavasana, the easiest and simplest asana. So begin with Shavasana, and that's also a start. You don't have to do things that, you don't have to do things that are too difficult sometimes. Sometimes just starting with simple and having simple goals and easy goals can be so powerful.
You know, another confession. I don't know why you've gotten me into this mode where I'm making one confession after another, and these are rather embarrassing, Ira. But you know, when people do ask me what my favorite yoga asana is, I do say it is the Shav asana. Uh, my apologies for that really bad joke. But
It's an asana. And actually, can I tell you, when people say, oh, Shavasana, you know what my reply to that is? Because I feel, I said, Shavasana is the most difficult asana. It is actually the toughest asana to do because you really have to be as still as a corpse. Your breath, your body, your mind all have to be still. So it's a super tough asana to do.
well, clearly I'm going to remember that next time before I crack that joke with somebody about yoga. But I'm very curious, Ira. You were married to yoga before you married your husband. So, has your influence as a yoga teacher and someone who's so passionate about it rubbed off on the husband yet?
It has. It has. Definitely my husband, Madhu, he is coming to our yoga class this evening. We have a special yoga class at our studio here in Bombay. And he's attending, and he said that I'm really busy, but I want to make sure that I attend this class, not for me, but for the practice. So he was not a yoga person before, but he found, for example, you mentioned Yin Yoga. He loves Yin Yoga. He really finds himself drawn to that practice, and it's something so beautiful. For him, a traditional Hatha Yoga practice isn't his go-to practice, but he found something that he loves. I also feel that a practice of yoga helped him find his spiritual center. When he saw the impact that yoga and spirituality was having on my life, he definitely took that into his life. And in fact, he's a movie producer and he's making Ramayana and Mahabharata. That's his Swadharma, his mission in life. And definitely that spiritual component of bhakti has helped him on his journey. So yoga is many things. It's not just a physical practice. It's also bhakti yoga. It's also karma yoga. It's also Raj yoga, the yoga of the mind. So I feel that he's definitely connected to yoga. And even the physical practice, is a very, very meditative, restorative practice because there's so much stress in his life that he really needs this practice, which can calm down his parasympathetic nervous system.
In fact, I want to dwell a little further on that era because, it is now well established that yoga isn't just for the body, it is equally for the mind and the soul. Needless to say, we live in very tough and stressful times. We are coming off the COVID pandemic, which perhaps has been the toughest period for a vast majority of people in their lives. And even otherwise, given the kind of lives we lead, it is pretty stressful, most of the time. In that context, when we're looking for a release, when we're looking for some sort of an escape, or for healing for that matter, do you believe that yoga now plays a very important role in that transformation? I mean, sure, we can still go and talk to our therapists, but that yoga can actually be a very important part of that journey now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yoga is not just physical, but remember, yoga can begin at the physical as well. I've seen people overcome serious mental health issues with a yoga practice. I'm not saying that it's for everyone, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't see a therapist, but yoga and a yogic lifestyle has a definite positive impact on mental health, and various degrees. It, of course, can counter stress on a physical, emotional level, on a scientific level as well. We're moving into our parasympathetic nervous system that I keep on mentioning because it is so important. Our nervous system is composed of the sympathetic nervous system, which is our more active part of the nervous system, and then the parasympathetic nervous system, which is all about rest and digest. So with yoga, you really stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system, and therefore can have immense benefits on that part of the body which is constantly stressed. I think especially for women as well, it's so good for the hormones. I think women go through different phases of life, and hormonal health goes up and down and up and down, and our hormones are constantly changing with age and different phases of life, like motherhood and so on. So I definitely believe that especially for women, to maintain their endocrine system and hormonal health, because we all know that hormones are directly related to our mood, right? We all go through PMS, etc. Yoga can be a beautiful thing of countering mood swings to, with PMS as well. So I do feel that yoga on multiple levels is so beautiful and so positive. And definitely, as we face a mental health crisis more than ever before, yoga, and especially the pranayama and meditation part of yoga, can be of great help.
Any other specific asanas that you would recommend for somebody who might be dealing with a mental health crisis, Ira?
Yes, I would definitely say two practices that I'm going to prescribe here. One is just, it's a very simple technique of abdominal breathing. So you can place one hand on your belly and just slowly begin to breathe in from the nostrils, inhaling on 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath for 4 counts. And slowly with control, exhale on 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale on 1, 2, 3, 4. And slowly with control, exhale on 1, 2, 3, 4. So really simple breathing. And the other thing that I want to explain is Anulom Vilom Pranayam, alternate nostril breathing. You can take your right hand in the Vishnu Mudra, middle finger, and point your finger on the palm, bring the right thumb to the right nostril, other 2 fingers on the left, and keeping the right nostril closed, inhaling from the left, closing both nostrils, and then slowly exhaling from the right. Inhale from the right, retain, and exhaling from the left. Inhaling from the left, retain, and exhaling from the right. Inhaling from the right, retain, and exhaling from the left. I just demonstrated this to you, but I'm already feeling a deep sense of calm with this practice. So definitely, this is such a beautiful, simple pranayam. And I think you should consider starting this tomorrow to begin on your yoga journey.
I am going to put this on my to-do list. Really appreciate you actually demonstrating.
So simple.
Yes.
So simple.
Yes, and we really appreciate you demonstrating this for our viewers, Ira. I'm sure it will inspire many to take up yoga if they haven't already. Final question, Ira, before we let you go. Your one message today on International Yoga Day to all yoga lovers out there and those who haven't taken up yoga yet.
I would say today is the best day of the year to take up a yoga practice. Today is the day. So begin with something simple and begin your practice, and you will not regret it. There's one thing: you will never, ever regret doing a practice of yoga. On that note, thank you very much and for having me and asking all these wonderful questions. And I look forward to seeing you and your yoga journey and seeing everyone else. Of course, I'm on Instagram at Ira Trivedi and at Your Blog. You can follow me for any personal questions that you have. I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. And I'm sure after watching this interview, many will want to reach out to you on social media, Ira. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time. And once again, many congratulations on your wedding.